everyone, and welcome to Work 2.0. This is your weekly briefing on careers, money, AI, and the future of work. Today, I'm sitting down with someone that I've known for a little bit. Actually, I think it's been a year and a half when I last interviewed him for my Forbes column. And today, I decided to bring him over as one of our inaugural guests for Work 2.0, the podcast. Jon Bostock, he is a CEO, entrepreneur, author, and he's also an investor, I forgot to mention, and he's someone with a very unique perspective on careers, leadership, and obviously AI, as we know it today, being as he's at the forefront of leadership right now. Jon, welcome to the show.
First of all, it's awesome to see you again, and
Yes.
congratulations on all of your recent success doing
Thank
Forbes
you.
and your consulting work. And it's been awesome to see your journey as well. And I'm super, super excited to talk not only about AI, but how it's kind of transforming the work around us.
Yes, yeah, well, delighted to have you here. So, just for the benefit of our audience, obviously, I've read your book, right? The Elephant's Dilemma. I've got it actually, because we just moved, I've got it en route to me as we speak. I don't have all my things right now, but I've read your book. It's an incredible book about your journey, your personal story, and just for the benefit of our audience, obviously, you may not know you personally. You've led quite an incredible career journey, from scaling brands now, a legacy brand, becoming a CEO of a major brand, which you talk about in your book, and obviously becoming an author as well. And I also see on Instagram you doing some stuff when it comes to your hobby and art, which is amazing. So just tell me about, like, when you look back, what would you say are the key moments that kind of shaped your career and how you lead today as a CEO?
Yeah, and look, I think success is relative. I still feel like just a normal person trying to contribute to the world every single day. And so I certainly don't think of myself as someone who's actually done extraordinary things. I literally think of myself as someone who just wants to do good and try to do good in the world in which I live in. And I certainly do talk about that in my book. It's really, really interesting because when I look back, and as you mentioned, I've done a variety of things: big business, sold a business, started a business, invested in businesses, running several companies. There has been one common theme, and I know you talked to me beforehand, and we talked about what we were going to think about. And as I reflected on that initial conversation and coming into this, what occurred to me is the common theme is embracing change throughout and knowing that change was going to happen. And I think
Mm,
that in what I've done and what has made me successful, it's looking at the businesses that I was involved in, or the community projects, or the nonprofits, and knowing that they have to change because the world around us is changing so fast. And so you
mm,
you almost have to embrace change of process, change of service offering, change of personnel. You have to embrace it. And you
mm.
not only have to embrace it, but anticipate it, expect it, lean into it, build off of it. And so it really is the idea of knowing that change is accelerating and you have to play a role in that acceleration.
Got it. So when you're looking back at your journey and you say, you've always kind of been the one to embrace change and obviously change in your career, did you always, like when you first started, like your very first job, did you always see yourself as being a CEO, or did like change in your career and change in life lead you to that?
You know, I've always chased things that are interesting to me.
Right.
I never, even you mentioned the project, which I'm super proud of, my idea of going out and capturing beautifully marked spaces throughout the world
Mm,
and sharing that via Instagram.
yeah.
That's just a hobby, but it's something that interests me. And it's
Yeah.
something that makes me more aware. And when I look at the projects that I've done and businesses that I've led, they genuinely and naturally interested in me, whether it was the product, whether it was the way they went to market, whether it was the people in the company. And so I've
Mm,
never kind of said, I didn't grow up around business. I didn't grow up with this ecosystem to sit here and say, I'm going to be a CEO and here's the exact path of doing it and here's the
right.
recipe for it.
Right.
It was more of, in school, I went after what interested me. In business
Mm,
school, I chose coursework that interested me. I
mm,
got introduced to a company called GE, which I knew nothing about. but it interested me. And so I was always kind of chasing that inspiration and things that
Mm,
interest me. And I think that natural curiosity also has allowed me to embrace new things and change. And so
mm,
it's kind of all come together and compounded. I mean, Rachel, the one thing I would say is that I am a firm believer in that everything is a build, and you couldn't do
yes,
what you do today if it weren't for what you did in the past. And so
absolutely.
some of
Yeah.
this is a little bit of like path development and luck
Yeah.
and just, again, following what interests you and building off of that,
Mm. You're right. I mean, when I think about when I started my career or my business 6 years ago, I was 19, and I
which is
definitely did.
incredible to
Yeah.
think about.
Thank you. But I definitely didn't see me being where I am now. I would have wanted to be where I am now, but I couldn't see that. But through change and through leveraging what I did before and building off of that and growing with change, that led me to be the person I am now. So I 100% agree. It's like sometimes it's overwhelming looking at the big picture, but if you adapt to changes and grow from them, you can actually become the big picture in the end, which is really
That's
amazing.
right.
So tell me about, like, your idea of a nice segue from this when it comes to change is obviously we know that the world of work is changing. The future of work, many people are concerned about, which is what this whole podcast is all about, really. And obviously, the role of CEO, I can imagine, is definitely evolving fast, especially with things like AI disrupting a lot of industries over the past 2.5 years. So, how do you see? I'm curious to know, how do you see the responsibilities of a modern CEO looking at 2025 and beyond, changing in the next few years?
It's almost hard to describe. And, you talk about the idea of change and you put in a layer of AI and the speed in which AI is
Mm,
transforming the world, and it is humbling. It is challenging to think about all of the different ways that it's going to change the way we work. Now,
yeah,
there are pockets that have been impacted before. We've seen new software programs come in and change processes. We've seen the call center world, as an example, get impacted by technology.
yeah,
I don't think that we've seen the level and depth of change that
mm,
AI will create into the workforce. Everything from communications to marketing to financial modeling. I'll even share this with you, Rachel. We're building a process to capture, identify, and vet ideas. So
wow,
the company that I'm leading today is a company that has been through a lot of transformation.
mm,
We're building a process to think about new ideas, to make
mm,
those new ideas real. And by the way, we're using AI
that's
to filter
amazing.
those ideas and evaluate the feasibility. And so that's an example of,
Mm,
it's a small one, but it's
mm,
an example that AI can be used in any way you can imagine it. And it's
mm,
much different than any technology that we've seen before. So whether it be just workforce
mm,
dynamics, whether it be the introduction of robotics, advanced algorithms that you get generated
right,
through AI, things are going to change. And we
yeah,
we as business leaders need to be incredibly prepared for it, because highly intensive, labor intensive operating models are going to have to change.
right,
And
right.
it's a daunting thing to think about.
And obviously at Work 2.0, we like to talk about current news, and I'm sure you've probably seen, a week or so ago in recent news, Andy Jassy, the Amazon CEO, he put a memo out saying that, basically over the next few years, their workforce at Amazon is going to be significantly cut because of AI. He was honest to say that, and I was thinking to myself, well, haven't they done enough cuts already? But so it kind of, obviously, people are worried about their jobs and what's going to happen when it comes to the impact of AI on the workforce. Do you see that as a positive thing when it comes to AI cutting the workforce? Or what do you see when it comes to, like, your own workforce in your company? How do you see that moving forward, and what are the upsides of it?
I think it will be one of the bigger challenges that we face over the next
Mm,
few decades. I think that ultimately, when you look at the economy needs a healthy and robust workforce.
yeah,
And as you put new technology into environments that could potentially eliminate the need for a healthy and robust workforce, that creates risk. And so if you look at a situation like what Jassy is describing at Amazon, those jobs are being replaced by AI. Theoretically, across every company, those same jobs would be replaced by AI. And so the question becomes, where do those people go? And by the way, those same people that are doing those same things at other companies, where do they go as well? And how do they
Mm.
find meaningful work? And I think this is going to be the biggest challenge. Like look at different technologies that are coming into play. Think about robo taxis. All of a sudden,
Yes.
that's a cohort of individuals impacted. Think
Yes.
about the fact that 20 years ago, you used to be able to call a travel agent and book a trip. Now, not only do you use e-commerce to do that, but new advanced AI tools are even simplifying the travel process even more and
Mm.
helping you navigate the entire thing from A to Z. I think ultimately, whereas we were able to shift over time. So when you looked at the decline of agriculture, we shifted workforce. When you look at certain things,
Mm.
to my example of robo taxis, there's no turning back. No one's going to ever say, let's put people back in the seat. That skill is not as transferable to
Mm.
others. We've got a serious challenge that we've got to sort through. And I think that ultimately it will be a very large scale political and social challenge.
Right, right. Do you think upskilling is the way forward? Like maybe obviously if people can't go back to certain jobs because those jobs are completely obsolete, that they don't exist. Do you think upskilling would be the best way forward, or reskilling, should I say, so they can completely shift?
Yeah, I certainly think there are pockets that are less prone to the impact of
Mm.
AI. You think
Yeah.
about commercial services, residential services that
Mm.
require physical labor or skilled
Of course.
trades. Some of those categories are insulated pretty well and therefore could take on
Mm.
workers who are impacted by technology. But certainly, I think when you look at our economy, which is mainly service based, there's a lot of risk there. There's a lot of risk at retail. There's a lot of risk in
Mm.
fast food. There's a lot of risk in transportation.
Yeah.
So I think this is a larger scale mathematical conundrum, and it's
Mm.
not just as easy as saying, look, the state of Texas needs 20% more plumbers, therefore all risk is mitigated. I think this is a larger issue where you've got pretty significant verticals impacted by this
Yeah,
this
you're right. It actually made me think when I was last year when I came to St. Lucia on vacation, and we were going through Liverpool Street Station in London, huge station, and I'm not the kind of person to eat fast food, but we were super hungry, so we stopped by, I think it was McDonald's, to grab something to eat. And because it's been a minute since I've been in a fast food chain, I went in there and I was literally stunned. There was no one serving at all. Everything was self-service. You order at the kiosk, and the person you meet the person when your number gets called up on the screen and you collect your order. And I thought to myself, well, we're just this close to no one delivering it to you. What if a robot just delivers it to you? And this whole McDonald's is run by robots essentially, and self-service kiosks. And that's when it occurred to me, wow, retail and even the restaurant industry could really get significantly impacted by technology, and then what do we do next? So I think my next question from that is, where do you feel that leaders and executives are getting it wrong when it comes to AI right now?
well it's interesting because it is it is a wave that's coming,
Mm.
and I've talked to a lot of leaders and other CEOs who have tried to slow it down or
Mm.
put measures in place to quote protect a company from AI. And the biggest fear obviously is employees using AI and potentially leaking information.
Mm.
The reality is that I think a lot of leaders are just getting the momentum of it wrong. And I think a lot of leaders are underestimating the speed at which it's going to change the way we work. And it's going to change the way that we have our organizational models designed. And
Mm.
so, when you think about the fact that businesses over the last 4 or 5 decades have been building their brands through marketing and advertising and comms, that is an area that is ripe for disruption from an AI perspective, whether it's
Yes.
content creation, whether it's
Hmm.
writing. AI can certainly replace entire marketing teams. And so,
Yeah.
I think this is something where I think they're getting it wrong by underestimating the speed,
Mm. Right.
underestimating the rate of change.
Mm.
And I think comments like Jassie's comment I think are well placed because not enough people I think are embracing the reality of it. And
Mm.
it's great that people like you who are kind of looking out the future and saying, hey, I've got to beat the drum here because things are changing, and
Right.
let's bring thought leaders together to have the discussion. It's necessary. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I think the number one risk right now is just people underestimating the speed.
Yeah, you're so right. You're so right. Because while they're doing that, especially like there's risks in that because the workforce can be using it in a way which it shouldn't be used, and yet the business managers, their heads are in the clouds. I actually saw, like, it was like a joke, but it wasn't a joke, on LinkedIn, where someone said that at their workplace it was completely banned across the board. Like, AI was completely banned, and they said it in a humorous way, but they were actually serious that their company said no AI at all in our company. And I thought, well, it's not possible to completely restrict AI, because when you think about it, even before ChatGPT came around, we were using some form of artificial
That's right.
intelligence. But then it makes you think, like, obviously there's a valid fear there, but then you can't at the same time say no AI across the board, because, well, you're going to lose your employees, they're going to go somewhere else, but also because you're refusing to adapt to the change. There's the element of change again, and then you also risk falling behind when it comes to your competitors, which is obviously very important from a CEO perspective. And from now, thinking from a someone who's not a CEO, someone who's maybe a really ambitious professional trying to climb the ladder in management or leadership or even becoming an entrepreneur, there is obviously this genuine fear where people are trying to keep up. So it's either they're scared of being replaced, or they're scared of not being able to keep up because there's constantly, every day, there's a new change. Um, what would your advice be to those professionals who are trying to build or rebuild their careers right now and are scared of not being able to catch up?
Well, look, the first thing that I would say to anyone at any phase of their career is follow things that you're naturally interested in, and
Mm,
be curious about those things, and spend time working on those things. And so I
that's what
think
you did.
yeah, people who genuinely enjoy doing what they do, they'll find their path. The one thing to consider in all of this is, if I were starting out right now and I looked ahead and saw that technology was changing things in such a fast and rapid way that is very disruptive, where I would personally lean in is related to experiences and related to things that cannot be created digitally. And so,
Mm,
as an example, if you look at the world around you right now, you can't replicate the world that you live in from London. You had to
mm.
move.
You're right, right.
You had to physically move all of your things, and you had to move your life to enjoy that environment. Well, there are dimensions of that. There are vacations that are shorter. There are meetings that are shorter. There are a lot of things that take place in our world, in our lifetime, that are moments, and they're real
Mm,
moments, and they can't be changed by technology. And so I would really look at how to allow humans to do more things that are real, that are not linked to technology, that are
right.
experiential, things that you can capture as a memory. Those are the things that I think will really differentiate our time. Because look, the reality is work will be very, very tech heavy.
Mm,
It will be highly, highly efficient from an operating perspective, but
right.
our lives don't have to be run by technology, and our
Mm,
lives can still be filled with very rich experiences, moments with family, doing things that are outside, enjoying nature. And so there is the ability to monetize
mm.
those experiences and do
Wow.
those things. And so, again, if I were starting over, I would challenge myself to be thinking about how you build pockets of anti-technology
Mm.
experiences and moments.
Wow, that is some really sound advice. I never thought about it that way. Because a lot of the advice that's propelled online is all about building online and riding the digital wave. But you're advocating a slightly different approach. You're saying, well, yeah, ride with the changes, but to really secure your and future-proof yourself, think of outside of digital. Think about physical
But
experiences.
specifically, if you want to be an entrepreneur and
Yeah.
really think about creating spaces that people can go to. And look, I think a really interesting way to think about it, and I think it will provide, some color for a lot of people, even people in business. If you think about Starbucks as an example, Starbucks was a brilliant idea because it created a third place, a very social environment for
Mm.
people to go to. The
Right.
interesting thing is digitization pulled people out of the store, and digitization had people order via app, simply go in and pick it up with no relationship to the
Mm.
store. And now, obviously, Starbucks is trying to claw that back. But that's an example of a business that was first built on the principles of community and social experience,
Right.
etc., allowed for technology to kind of change those dynamics, and now they're trying to get back into it. So again,
Mm.
more examples of how business models can not only survive but thrive, thinking
Mm.
about human connectivity.
Wow, wow, that's powerful. Yeah, that's amazing. Now that's really got me thinking now, actually, as an entrepreneur, because I'm always thinking of new ideas every day, just naturally. New ideas are coming and flowing, and I'm thinking about them. But that's really deep. That's really powerful, and that's obviously why, like, I know the company that you were in before when I interviewed you, that was a very hands-on company because it was in the trades. It was focused on the trade work, and that's something that you can't, at least now, replicate with AI. And that's one of the things that we're noticing. A lot of Gen Zers currently, they're foregoing 4-year degrees and they're going to trade schools and they're taking associate degrees so they can go into the trades, which is really encouraging to see. But it's also, I think it's a really good move for them in light of what you said, because it's very hands on. It's again talking about experiences and physical things as opposed to things that can easily be like achieved online without your help, even without your supervision. So that's awesome. And I think my final question to you as we sort of wrap this up is, if you could go back and give your younger selves a piece of advice, talking to the younger, like ready to become leaders and entrepreneurs out there, if you could go back and give your younger self some advice, what advice would you give?
Um, I would probably sit myself down for a whole weekend and give myself advice. It is, I think the hardest part in in life overall is it's just complex. I think you have family, you have career, you have interest,
Mm,
and balancing all that is hard. And I think that there's never a time in your life where you're always high,
mm,
and there's never a time where you're always low. There's
right.
going to be the peaks and valleys, and you have to just understand that no matter what phase, there's never a point you wake up and you're like, I did it. I did everything I
Mm,
wanted to do. I'm
yeah.
done, and now I relax. You don't.
No.
That's just not. That's not the way life is wired. And so I think because of that, no matter what phase you're at, there are high highs and low lows, and you just
Mm,
have to be prepared for it, and you have to understand that it's complex, and it's complex for everybody, and you're not in a situation where you're the only one thinking those things. And again, I think when when you look at it in that way and you embrace change, as I talked about, and you follow your points of curiosity and the things that excite you, on average, you end up having more high days than low. And I think
mm,
I think that's the best you can do. And
yes.
so, that's kind of what I would say. When I was young, I was so ambitious, and I still am in many ways, but I think I would also tell myself to slow down a bit and know that in 20 years, you wouldn't be where you were had you not done what you're doing today. And so
Right.
I think there's also that build and rate of change that you have to be comfortable with.
Absolutely. Wow. John, thank you so much for such an honest and candid conversation. I know you're really busy, and I know our listeners really appreciate your time. I hope that their takeaway is that they're going to think a lot differently, not just about leadership, but just when it comes to their careers. And it's very inspiring and encouraging for their future to know that change will happen. Just roll with it and embrace it, and ready to discover themselves and what makes them curious, what makes them happy. So, for our listeners, if you're ready to stay employable and profitable and future ready for 2025 and beyond, don't forget to follow Work 2.0, the podcast. Do give this a good rating on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And don't forget to share it with your friends, with your coworkers. And I'll see you in the next episode.